Okay, we are on chapter Tezvav, chapter 15, and we are in our last class for this chapter. So let's remind ourselves what we're talking about here. We are discussing a person who is working on himself to constantly be growing. Now, I want to point out, and this is, I think, a very, very relevant point. If you look at the top of page Chav Aleph, it's very fascinating that he adds this person here, this character that the Alter Rebbe adds on the top of the page is someone who is seemingly perfect. All the results are there. He doesn't sin. He does all the mitzvahs. He's perfect. And yet, the Alter Rebbe says that is not the goal. This person is not accomplishing the goal. Which tells us what? The Alter Rebbe is showing us that the goal is not about the results. The goal is about the effort in life. Putting in the effort. That's where it's at. That's what we have to work on. So even though this person has everything right, he's doing everything perfectly, yet that is not considered the winner that we're supposed to be trying to be. I think that is absolutely fantastic. An incredible idea, right? Because generally speaking, we grow up with this idea that it's all about the results. And here you have a person, the results are there. The results are there. Every single moment he's learning and he's doing mitzvahs and he never ever does an avera, he never has a desire to do anything wrong. So seemingly this should be the perfect person. And yet the Alter Rebbe shuns him. The Alter Rebbe says this is not what it's about. What is it about? Effort. It's about trying to get better every single day, every single minute of every day. Try to become a better person than you were 5 minutes ago or the way you were yesterday. That is marvelous. What a marvelous idea. And so therefore, it's not about, this guy learns this much Torah and does this many mitzvahs. No, that's not what it's about at all. It's about how much effort are you putting into your avodas Hashem, your serving God. You. Nothing comparison to anyone else, only compared to you the way you were yesterday. That's what we're comparing to. That is something else. That's what shows if I am succeeding in my mission down here in this world. My soul was sent down here to do a mission. Am I succeeding or not? Now, the Rebbe says, don't focus on results. Focus on effort. If the effort is there, you're succeeding. If you're trying to do a little better than what you were yesterday, you are a success story. That's where it's at. And then he comes in towards the end of page Chav Aleph, and this is where we're holding here, and he says, wait a minute, what about a guy that really does not have a desire to learn? He doesn't have a desire to sit still and learn and whatever, and yet he works on himself so hard until the point that now he's made himself into a person that does enjoy doing that, and he wants to do that. And so he's turned over his whole character, which seemingly is, okay, he hit the jackpot. He's perfect now. So Alter Rebbe says, no, that's not true. He's perfect compared to 2 days ago, but what about what is he going to do today as compared to yesterday? And that's a whole new avoda. And that's really the idea. It's constantly trying to become better with wherever you're at. Not to anyone else, just me. Me, myself, and I. That's what we're doing. So let's read now from the middle of the page. We did a bunch of this before, but let's just get a running start. We'll start with literally, I think it's about the middle of page Chav Aleph. Towards the end of the line, there's a period, and then it says v'chein. It says like this, v'chein, and also, av mi she'einu masmin b'limudo b'tivo. Even someone who is not a masmin, someone who does not have a tendency to sit and learn Torah all day, mitzad his nature. Rak only she'irgil atzmo lilmod. He got himself accustomed to learning. Bahasmada gedola, with a tremendous effort. Vinasa hergel lo teva sheni, and not only that, he's worked on himself so hard that now it's become his second nature. Dailo ba'ava misaterazu. And it's enough for him, the hidden love that's inside of him. Unless now he wants to learn more than whatever he is accustomed to doing. He's saying he is able to, at this point of time, he could coast. Coasting is not a winning situation. That's what the Alter Rebbe is saying here. And so therefore he needs to, even if he worked on himself so hard to get to where he's at, that's marvelous. It's literally marvelous that he's done that. But it's not the end of the game. Now he has to continue forward. That's the story. Now we can understand what the Gemara says. The Overelokim, someone who serves Hashem, which is the goal here, right? The Alter Rebbe has outlined that the goal of a soul coming down into this world is to become an Overelokim, someone who serves God in a constant way, in a way that it's a verb, present tense verb. That's the goal. It means someone who learns his piece of Torah 101 times. Volo avdu, someone who doesn't serve. Someone who doesn't learn more than 100 times. What do you mean? 100? 100 times, that's not enough? 100 versus 101? Like, what's the big deal? He already learned 100 times, right? That was the custom back then in those days. 100 times. You know what it means to learn a piece of Gemara 100 times? That's amazing. Yet 100 times is someone who doesn't serve God. 101. Oh, now we're talking. That's what the Gemara itself is telling us. 101 tells us something. It teaches us something. It means he went beyond his norm. He went beyond what he's accustomed to. He went beyond his nature. That's where it's at. That's the idea of Ahainu. Mishum shebiyameim hayad regilus lishnos kol perek mea pa'amim. Why? Because in those days it was the usual way to study 100 times every piece of Torah. Yeah? Kidi'isa hasam, like it says over there, Gemara, it brings a mashal. What's the mashal? The mashal is mishuk shel chamarim. Shinizkarim le'eser parsei bezuza, v'le'echad esar parsei betrei zuzei, mipnei shehu yosim regiloso. It's talking about for example, a person used to be, right, that if you went in Manhattan, right, and you took a taxi or something like that, right? So for the first X amount of blocks or percentage of miles, you paid a certain, $1 or whatever it was. And then if you go 1 inch over that, now comes the next dollar. Right? In other words, it's the idea that the Gemara is saying is that someone who rents a donkey to travel with, right? And he goes 10 parsas is a certain distance, right? That he has to pay a zuz for. But if he goes 1 parsa more, 11 parsas, right? Now he has to pay 2 zuzes. What happened? All he did was 1 little inch more, 1 little parsa more, 1 piece more. He didn't have to go another 10 to do it. It's all he had to do is 1 little bit more. That 1 little bit more is equal to everything that he did before. You could say to yourself, but the guy learned 100 times this page of Gemara. 100 times. Who learns 100 times a Gemara? That's amazing. What an incredible accomplishment. He says, you're right, but that's his nature. And what we want is to go a little bit extra. And that's the lesson in life. The lesson in life is not always to go, you have to do another 100. You don't have to go 200. You don't have to do everything all over again. Just push yourself a little bit more than you think you can. That's where the success lies. The success lies in that little bit extra that a person is able to go beyond himself. That's where the success is. And that's what we're trying to talk about here. That when a person is focused only on the results, so then he can say, I did it. I did what I was supposed to do. I did everything. Look at him. So the Alter Rebbe says that's not the goal. The goal is to constantly be putting effort into what it is that you're doing. And if you become so used to whatever it is that you're doing, at that moment then, you are no longer accomplishing what you can potentially accomplish. Go that extra step. Go the extra yard, as they say in English, right? So therefore, that 101st time, which is more than what is normal, right, which he became accustomed to since the time he was a young boy, since the time that whatever it was, the truth is, whenever he became used to it. It may have been even yesterday that he became used to it. But now he has to push himself further. Shakula keneged kulam. The idea here is that it's equal to everything else. The whole 100 times. That one extra time is equal to the whole 100. That's amazing. Because it's not about doing another 200 or another 100. It's just push yourself an extra yard. That's what it's about. At that moment, when he does that extra yard, when he pushes himself that little more than what he's used to or what he's comfortable with, when he makes himself vulnerable by that extra piece, that is equivalent to everything he's done before. And then at that moment, he's known as an Overelokim. Now he's serving God. Now he's fulfilling his mission of his soul in this world. That's the idea. And it goes across the board with everything. Here we're talking about an example with learning. But it could mean that way also with regards to giving tzedakah or giving a helping hand to someone else. Or in any area of just trying to be better. Trying to be a better person. That's where we have to see it. Because why? Because in order to change that which you have become, that I have become, used to, which has become a habit. How does a person do this? How does a person gain the gusto, so to speak, to be able to push himself that further? What gives him the strength to be able to go beyond what he's used to and beyond what he feels comfortable with? He has to arouse within himself a love for Hashem. He has to arouse within himself a love that is going to force him, is going to make him realize and give him the power to be able to go beyond himself. It has to be coming from somewhere. There has to be a motivator which pushes him forward to get him to the next level. Namely, he thinks about the greatness of Hashem in his brain, and he thinks about why he's here in this world. He thinks about what Hashem is. He thinks about these things, and that causes him, it gives him an energy. It gives him like I used the word before, a gusto, because that's what it is. It's like an extra power, an extra strength that pushes him over what he usually thinks he could do. That pushes him beyond the natural energy that he has in his heart, that he has in his midos, in the left side of his heart, Hamale Dam, which is filled with blood, HaNefesh Bahamis, to win out over the Nefesh Bahamis, Shemeklipa Shememenu Hu Ateva Vezu Hi Avoidet Tamal Beinoni. This is the perfect Beinoni. This is the perfect avoda of the Beinoni. This is where it's at. Why is it the perfect avoda of the Beinoni? Because right now we're talking about an idea that it's not just that he pushes himself. That push has to come from somewhere. Otherwise, he's not going to have the strength to go beyond himself. It has to come through a mind-based meditation. That his mind realizes that it's worth it for him to overcome his nefesh bahamias. That's where it's coming from. That's where the strength lies. And when he's able to really connect in that way, he's able to tune in to him, to Hashem. Now what happens is that it gives him the power to be able to say, you know what? My Nefesh Bahamia says, stop. You've already done enough. Like, what more do you need to do? Like, it's enough already. Must speak. It's enough. And yet, at that moment, he's enabling himself to go stronger and more and more and more, and that's where it's at. Or a second possibility, right, is as he's going to talk about in chapters 18 and 19, right, which is the idea of somehow tuning into his hidden love that's in himself, that he got, right, as an inheritance from his forefathers, right? That could win out over the nature of the left side of his heart. This is also called the avoda. Lihilachem im hateva, to fight a war against the nature, that he's able to win out right? That through the hidden love that he has within his heart, however, when he doesn't have a war at all, so then it's not called avodah. So we talked about 3 points here. Point number 1, he's calling the avodah tama, the perfect avodah of the Beinoni. What's the perfect avodah of the Beinoni? That is when a person meditates, he thinks in his head about how great Hashem is, it arouses within him a desire to mamish win out over his Yetzer Hara, right? That is the perfect avodah of the Beinoni. Point number 2. Every single Jew has within himself a hidden love that he wants to be connected to Hashem. He wants to be close to Hashem. That's his nature. That's how we were born. That's in our quote-unquote spiritual DNA, right? So this idea is also enough to win him over. It's not the perfect avodah because he's tapping into something that he has already. But it could give him the strength to stop himself from doing something wrong or to cause him to win out over the Yetzer Hara. But the third point, which is that he doesn't put any effort in whatsoever, so that even though he might have all the results in the world, all the results, he's perfect mitzvah, the results, from the point of view of the results. But at the end of the day, the results are not where it's at. Since he's not putting the effort in, he's not fighting the war, so then he is not going to be called an oived. He's not going to be called one that serves Hashem. And that's it for chapter 15.